The heads of compute at two of the most powerful AI labs on Earth just made a real bet against each other. Not a Twitter argument. Not a podcast take. An actual wager between the people who decide where the GPUs go. The question, will 1% of global data center compute capacity be in space by the end of 2028? xAI's side says yes. Anthropic's side says no way. And when SemiAnalysis CEO Dylan Patel, one of the most credible AI infrastructure analysts on the planet, sat down on TBPN at the Cisco AI Summit and explained the numbers behind this bet, even the hosts couldn't believe what they were hearing. We've got the clip. We've got the math. Let's break it all down. First, let's understand who these people are, because this isn't a random Twitter debate. The heads of compute at xAI and Anthropic are some of the most consequential people in technology right now. At xAI, the compute team is responsible for the Colossus supercluster 100,000 NVIDIA H100 GPUs in Memphis, Tennessee, one of the most powerful AI clusters ever assembled. At Anthropic, the company behind Claude, the head of compute manages the infrastructure that runs every Claude query, every API call, every model training run. These aren't speculators. These are operators. People who live and breathe GPU clusters, power contracts, and data center leases. When they make a bet like this, it tells you something real about where the industry is actually headed, not where Twitter thinks it's headed. Here's the exact bet as described by Dylan Patel. The question is simple: what percentage of worldwide data center capacity will be in space by end of 2028? The bar they set is 1%. 1% sounds tiny. But 1% of global compute by 2028 is enormous. The xAI side is taking the over. They believe Musk's vertical integration, owning SpaceX, owning Starship, controlling launch costs, makes orbital compute viable within 2 years. The Anthropic side is taking the under. They're betting the timeline is too aggressive, the physics too hard, and the infrastructure too immature. Dylan Patel's take? Quote, I take the under. Hitting just a gigawatt in orbit could take roughly 150 Starship launches, and Starship hasn't worked yet. That last part is the kicker. 150 launches. Let's do the math. Here's Dylan Patel breaking it down in his own words, live at the Cisco AI Summit on TBPN. This is the clip that set the AI infrastructure world on fire. 1 gigawatt of orbital compute. That's the threshold needed to represent a meaningful fraction of global AI capacity. Getting there requires approximately 150 Starship launches worth of payload. Each Starship can carry around 100 metric tons to low Earth orbit. High-density compute servers weigh roughly 20 to 30 kilograms per kilowatt of GPU compute. Run the numbers, and 1 gigawatt of orbit-deployed compute needs somewhere between 10,000 and 15,000 tons of payload. Divided by Starship's 100-ton capacity, you land at around 100 to 150 launches minimum. And that assumes Starship is flying reliably, on schedule, and without failures, none of which is guaranteed by 2028. Now let's zoom out on the 1% threshold, because the number sounds small but the scale is staggering. Global data center compute capacity today is estimated at somewhere around 50 to 100 gigawatts of total power consumption. 1% of that is 500 megawatts to 1 gigawatt. For context, a single large nuclear power plant generates about 1 gigawatt. So they're betting whether the equivalent of a nuclear plant's worth of compute will be operational in orbit in less than 3 years. And not just operational, reliably delivering compute to users, with power, cooling, communications bandwidth, and radiation shielding all solved. Today, the total compute in orbit is effectively zero. We'd be going from 0 to 1 gigawatt in 36 months. The xAI side is betting that SpaceX can execute something that has never been done in human history, on a timeline shorter than most data center construction projects on the ground. Here's where it gets nuanced, and why this bet is genuinely interesting rather than one-sided. The xAI side isn't delusional. Elon Musk's entire advantage is vertical integration. SpaceX designs, builds, and launches the rocket. xAI designs, deploys, and operates the compute. If anyone can compress the timeline on orbital infrastructure, it's a company where the person who owns the AI lab also owns the rocket company. Starship's launch cadence is improving dramatically, multiple successful test flights in Block 2 targeting much higher reliability. And Musk has publicly stated that orbital compute is a strategic priority. But the Anthropic side has a killer counter: even if Musk can fly the hardware up, you still can't maintain it, you still can't easily upgrade it, and you still can't beam that compute down fast enough for real-time inference. The physical speed of light doesn't care who owns the rocket. If you're building an AI infrastructure or compute, whether on the ground or apparently now in orbit, and you need a product team that actually understands how the stack works, links in the description. We build AI products for teams that move fast. Drop us a note. Alright, whose side are you on? xAI takes the over, 1% of global compute in space by 2028. Anthropic takes the under. Drop your prediction in the comments. I want to see the community call this one. Subscribe for daily AI coverage, every bet, every breakthrough, every number. I'll see you in the next one.